Resignation. An office clerk is a mute creature. Show your eyes to a labor, and he'll stand up, his face contorted in anger. Scold a porter, and he'll throw off his load and go his own way. Repel a beggar, and he will look at you angrily and walk away. Even a donkey sometimes kicks in distress, but alas, the poor office clerk, whether you glare at him, scold him, repel him, or kick him, will not show a wrinkle on his forehead. He has a control over his thoughts that perhaps not even a disciplined sage possesses. He is a statue of contentment, a model of patience, a true follower. Various human virtues live within him. Even ruins have their day of luck. On Diwali, they too are illuminated. In the rainy season, they are covered in greenery, sharing in nature's interests. But this poor clerk's luck never awakens. No light of a smile ever appears on his pale face. For him, every monsoon is dry. He never experiences the verdant month of Bhador. Lala Fatehchand is just such a mute creature. They say that a person's name also has some effect on them. In Fatehchand's case, this could not be proven true. If he were called Hari Chand, defeated Chand, it would not be an exaggeration. Defeat in the office, defeat in life, defeat among friends, his life was surrounded by despair everywhere. No sons, 3 daughters, no brothers, 2 sisters-in-law, not a penny to his name, but compassion and courtesy in his heart. No true friend, for the one he befriended betrayed him. His health was not good either. His hair had turned grey by the age of 32. No light in his eyes, poor digestion, pale face, sunken cheeks, stooped back, no courage in his heart, no strength in his liver. He would go to the office at 9 in the morning and return home at 6 in the evening, then he did not have the courage to go out again. He had no idea what was happening in the world. His world, both in this life and the afterlife, was the office. He cherished his job and was merely completing his days of life. He had no connection with religion, no engagement with faith, no entertainment, no games. He hadn't played cards in perhaps a long time. It was winter. There were some clouds in the sky. When Fatehchand returned from the office at 5:30, the lamps were already lit. Coming from the office, he would not speak to anyone. He would quietly lie down on the cot and stay still for 15 to 20 minutes before making any sound. As usual, he lay quietly when someone called out from outside within a minute. His youngest daughter went to check and found out it was the office peon. Sharda, his wife, was washing a pitcher and glass for him to wash his face and hands. She said, "Tell him, what's the matter? We have just come from the office, and now there's another summons." The peon said, "The boss has said, bring him now, it's very urgent." Fatehchand's silence broke. He raised his head and asked, "What's the matter?" Sharda said, "It's just the office peon." Fatehchand said nervously, "The office peon is here. Has the boss called?" Sharda said, "Yes, he says the boss is calling." "What kind of boss is yours, always calling you? You just returned home this morning, and yet another call has come. Tell him we won't come. Will he take your job or what else?" Fatehchand said cautiously, "Let me hear why he has called. I had finished all the work, I'll be right back." Sharda said, "Have some refreshments before you go. If you start talking to the peon you might forget to come inside." Saying this, she brought some snacks in small cups. Fatehchand stood up, but seeing the food, he sat back down on the cot and, looking eagerly at the cup, said fearfully, "Have you given it to the girls?" Sharda looked at him sternly and said, Yes, it's given, you eat." At that moment, the youngest daughter came and stood in front. Sharda looked at her angrily and said, "What are you doing climbing on my head? Go play outside." Fatehchand said, "Let her be, why scold her? Come here Chunni, take this snack." Chunni looked at her mother, frightened, and ran outside. Fatehchand said, "Why did you scare the poor girl away? If I had given her a few grains, she would have been happy." Sharda said, "There's hardly enough to go around everyone. If you give it to her, the other two would come too." "Who would you give it to?" At that moment, the peon called again, "Babuji, we are getting late." Sharda said, "Why don't you tell him that we won't come now?" Fatehchand said, "How can I say that, brother, it's a matter of livelihood." Sharda said, "So what, will you work to death?" Don't you see your own face? You look like you've been sick for 6 months. Fatehchand quickly took a few bites of the snack, drank a glass of water, and ran outside. Sharda was left making a betel leaf. The peon said, Babuji, you've taken too long, now hurry up, otherwise he'll scold you right away. Fatehchand took 2 running steps and said, we will walk like a human, whether he scolds or shows teeth. We can't run. It's right at the bungalow, isn't it? The peon said, well, he started coming to the office. The emperor or just for fun? The peon was used to walking fast. Poor Babu Fatehchand walked slowly. After a short distance, he began to punt. But he was a man, how could he say, brother, walk a little slower? With effort, he kept walking, until his thighs began to hurt. Halfway through, his legs refused to lift. His whole body was soaked in sweat. He felt dizzy. Butterflies began flying in front of his eyes. The peon challenged him, just move your feet, Babu. Fatehchand said with great difficulty, you go, I'm coming. They sat on the edge of the road, holding their head in both hands, catching their breath. The peon saw their condition and moved on. Fatehchand feared that this devil would go and say who knows what to the boss, then it would be terrible. He got up with his hands on the ground and walked again. But due to weakness, his body was panting. At that moment, even a child could have knocked them to the ground. Somehow stumbling, they reached the boss's bungalow. The boss was walking on the bungalow. He kept looking towards the gate and was getting frustrated not seeing anyone. As soon as he saw the peon, he glared and said, where have you been so long? The peon said, standing on the porch steps, sir. I'm running as fast as I can. The boss stamped his foot and said, what did Babu say? Fatehchand then came out from inside the compound and saluted the boss by bowing his head. The boss snapped, where have you been until now? Fatehchand saw the boss's flushed face and his blood ran cold. He said, sir, I've just left the office. As soon as the peon called, I was here. The boss said, you're lying, I've been standing here for an hour. Fatehchand said, sir, I'm not lying. Whatever delay happened in coming, but I didn't delay in leaving the house at all. The boss spun his cane and said, shut up, pig, I've been standing here for an hour, hold your ear. Fatehchand swallowed his anger and said, sir, I've been working for 10 years, never. The boss roared, shut up, pig, I'm saying hold your ear. Fatehchand pleaded, only if I've committed any fault. The boss yelled, peon, grab this pig's ear. The peon said in a low voice, sir, he's also my officer, how can I grab his ear? The boss said, I'm telling you, grab his ear, or I'll beat you with whips. The peon said, sir, I've come here to work. Not to be beaten. I am also a respectable man. Sir, take your job. Whatever you command, I am ready to obey. But I cannot disgrace anyone. The job is only for 4 days. Why spoil relations with the whole world for 4 days? The boss could no longer bear his anger. He ran with a whip. Seeing that it was not safe to stand there, the peon ran away. Fatehchand was still standing quietly. The boss, not finding the peon, came to him and grabbed both his ears and shook them. He said, you pig, you dare, go and bring the office file. Fatehchand, rubbing his ears, said, which file should I bring, sir? The boss said, file, which other file? Are you deaf, can't you hear, I'm asking for a file. Fatehchand somehow courageously said, which file are you asking for? The boss roared, that file, the one I'm asking for. Bring that file, bring it now. Poor Fatehchand no longer had the courage to ask anything else. The boss was already hot-tempered, on top of that the arrogance of power, and above all, drunk on alcohol. If he had attacked with a whip, what could the poor man have done? He quietly walked towards the office. The boss said, run, go, run. Fatehchand said, sir, I can't run. The boss said, oh, you've become very lazy. I'll teach you how to run. Run, pushing from behind, you still won't run? Saying this, the boss walked with a whip. Fatehchand, although an office clerk, was still a human. If he had been strong, he would have drunk the blood of that rascal. If he had any weapon, he would certainly have used it, but in that situation, it was his destiny to be beaten. He ran wildly and came out through the gate onto the road. The next day, Fatehchand did not go to the office. What would he have done by going? The boss didn't even mention the file's name. Probably forgot in his drunkenness. He slowly walked home, but this humiliation had put chains on his feet. Granted, he was physically weaker than the boss, and had nothing in his hands, but could he not have responded to his words? He had shoes on his feet, could he not have worked with them? Then why did he endure so much humiliation? But what was the remedy? If he had shot the boss in anger, what would have been spoiled? Maybe a couple of months of simple imprisonment. Possibly a fine of 200 to 400 rupees, but his family would have been ruined. Who in the world would have cared for his wife and children? Whose door would they have stretched their hands to? If he had had enough money to support his family, he would not have endured so much humiliation today. He would either have died or taught that devil a lesson. He was not afraid for his life. What pleasure in life was there for which he feared this way? The question was only of his family being ruined. Today, Fatehchand felt as much sorrow for his physical weakness as he had never felt before. If he had taken care of his fitness from the beginning, kept exercising, known how to wield a stick, would that devil have dared to grab his ear? He would have gouged out his eyes. At the least, he should have carried a knife from home, and if not, then a few slaps, and seen what happened next, go to jail or what? As he walked further, his mood raged even more at his cowardice and stupidity. What would have happened if he had slapped him 2 or 4 times, that the boss's servants, waiters would have pounced on him and beaten him senseless? Whatever would have befallen his children, would have befallen. The boss would have at least known that it's not easy to humiliate an innocent poor man. After all, what would happen if I died today? Who would take care of my children? Then whatever would befall them, would have befallen today. What harm was there? This last thought filled Fatehchand with so much passion that he turned back and took a few steps to take revenge for the humiliation from the boss, but then he thought, after all, the humiliation that had to happen, had happened. Who knows if he was at the bungalow or had gone to the club? At that moment, he also thought of Sharda's helplessness and his children becoming fatherless. Then he turned back and went home. As soon as he entered the house, Sharda asked, "Why were you called? It's been a long time." Fatehchand, lying on the cot, said, "It was just the madness of intoxication. What else? The devil abused me, humiliated me." That's all he kept repeating. Why the delay? The heartless one had asked the peon to grab my ear. Sharda, getting angry, said, "Didn't you take off a shoe and give it to that pig?" Fatehchand said, "The peon is very noble. He clearly said, 'Sir, I can't do this. I didn't take this job to dishonor good people.'" He saluted and left right then. Sharda said, "That's the bravery. Why didn't you scold that boss?" Fatehchand said, "Didn't I scold him? I also heard plenty. He ran with a cane, I also held a shoe. He gave me several cane strikes. I also gave several kicks." Sharda, pleased, said, "Really?" His mouth must have been this small. Fatehchand said, "A broom seemed to have swept across his face." Sharda said, "You did very well, you should have hit him more. If it were me, I wouldn't have left without taking his life. Coming back after being beaten, maybe I would have even hated your face. Although I wouldn't say anything with my mouth, but my respect for you would have gone from my heart. Now whatever falls on our head, I'll endure it happily. Where are you going? Listen, where are you going?" Fatehchand, mad with passion, stepped out of the house. Sharda kept calling out. He was again heading towards the boss's bungalow. Not trembling with fear, but with pride, his neck raised. His resolution was evident on his face. There was no weakness in his legs, no helplessness in his eyes. His body seemed transformed. Instead of the weak-bodied, pale-faced, skinny office clerk, now there was a manly face, filled with courage, robustly built. He first went to a friend's house and took his stick, then strutted towards the boss's bungalow. It was 9 o'clock at that time. The boss was at the dining table. But Fatehchand did not wait for him to get up from the table. The butler came out of the room and he lifted the curtain and went inside. The room was glowing with light. The floor was covered with a carpet that wouldn't have been laid even at Fatehchand's wedding. The boss looked at him with angry eyes and said, "Why have you come? Go out, why have you come inside? Fatehchand, standing, holding the stick, said, you had just asked me for a file, I've brought that file. Eat your food, then I'll show you. Until then, I'm sitting, eat in peace, perhaps this is your last meal. Eat well. The boss was stunned. He looked at Fatehchand with fear and anger and shuddered. Fatehchand's face showed firm resolve. The boss understood, this man was ready to die or kill at that moment. In terms of strength, Fatehchand was nowhere near him. But it was certain that he was ready to respond not with a stone, but with iron. If he spoke harshly to Fatehchand, what wonder if he attacked with a stick, although there was no doubt he would win in a fight, but getting beaten without cause is also not wise. You beat a dog with a stick, kick it, do whatever you like, but only until it doesn't growl. Once it growls and runs at you, then see where your courage goes. That was the situation with the boss at that time. As long as he was sure that Fatehchand would silently endure scolding, threats, whips, kicks, then he was a lion. Now he's changed his expression, holding a stick, lying in wait like a cat. A harsh word from his mouth and he swings the stick. At most, he could dismiss him. If he hits, there's also the fear of getting beaten. Then there's the risk of a criminal lawsuit being filed. Granted that he could ultimately put Fatehchand in jail with his influence and power, but he couldn't escape the troubles and infamy. Like a wise and far-sighted man, he said, oh, we understand, you are angry with us. What have we said to you, why are you angry with us? Fatehchand stood up and said, you had just grabbed my ears half an hour ago and said hundreds of nonsensical things to me. Have you forgotten so quickly? The boss said, I grabbed your ear, ha 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 ha. I grabbed your ear, ha ha ha. What a joke. Am I mad or insane? Fatehchand said, so am I lying? The peon is a witness. Your servants were also watching. The boss asked, when was this? Fatehchand said, just now, about half an hour ago, you called me and grabbed my ears without reason and pushed me. The boss said, oh Babuji, I was drunk at that time. The waiter had given us too much. I have no idea what happened, my God. I have no idea. Fatehchand said, if you had shot me while drunk, wouldn't I have died? If you were drunk and everything is forgiven in drunkenness, then I'm also drunk. Listen to my decision, either grab your ear and promise never to behave like this with any good man again, or I will come and grab your ear. Understand or not? Don't move here and there, you leave the place and I swing the stick. Then if your head breaks, it's not my fault. Do what I say, grab your ears. The boss, with a forced laugh, said, well Babuji, you're very funny. If we have said anything bad to you, we apologize. Fatehchand growled, grab your ears. The boss couldn't easily endure such humiliation. He jumped up and tried to snatch the stick from Fatehchand, but Fatehchand was not caught off guard. The boss hadn't even gotten up from the table when Fatehchand swung his well-aimed and strong arm with the stick. Since the boss was bareheaded, the blow landed on his head. His skull cracked. After holding his head for a minute, he said, I will dismiss you. Fatehchand said, I don't care about that, but today I won't leave until you've grabbed your ears. Promise that you will never again mistreat any good man, or else my other hand is itching to strike. Understand? The boss, having just experienced the first blow, knew that if this second hand struck, his skull might open up. He placed his hand on his ear and said, are you satisfied now? Never abuse anyone again. Never. If you ever do it again, remember, I'm not far away. You will never abuse anyone again. That's good, now I'm going, my resignation starts today. Tomorrow I will submit my resignation stating that you abused me, which is why I don't want to work. Understand? The boss said, why are you resigning? We are not dismissing you. Fatehchand said, now I won't work under a rascal like you. Saying this, Fatehchand left the room and walked home with great peace of mind. Today he experienced the joy of true victory. He had never felt such happiness before. This was the first victory of his life. The end.
This story was originally written by Premchand, a legendary author of Hindi literature almost 100 years ago. Do let us know if you liked the story. If it so happens that you did not like the story, even then, please let us know your choice so that we can find something you would like to listen. If you like the story, tell your friends as well. If you want to enjoy more stories like these from so many other Indian authors, subscribing the channel would make it easy. Bye for now.